Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
We are here back with Randy Swaim, bringing freedom to potential, coaching for relevance. He is awesome. He's amazing. He's just helping. He's a leader ahead of his time, ahead of his game, and he's helping create other leaders out there. And he's giving you some amazing footsteps to follow in. Randy, how's it going today, darling?
Good. It's an honor to be with you, as always.
Same here. I know last time we had a great conversation so we were talking about plane crashes. People may not know your background, Navy, all that. As a pilot, there's a lot to you besides just a coach that makes you very unique. What did you want to address for today?
What I thought I would do, because you remember that I think it was about a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago, I talked about that one example of kind of how I helped that lady out in church and everything, and she was blown away by that. But what I thought I'd do is kind of expand that into a more professional aspect of it, and it really kind of draws a picture of what real leadership is, rather than just the dictatorial, narcissistic people, that are trying to control freak and stuff. And so I thought I'd just share a little bit about that. And what I can do is bring in a couple of examples from the military background that I experienced that I think I may have shared on the show a year and a half ago or a long time ago, but it's a good picture of the results of that when the leader is doing that well. So we'll just kind of expand on that a little bit.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you so much. And coachingforrelevance.com is the website. Remind us, bring up the story again. I guess you have to share it because we have new listeners this time. Tell us a little synopsis of what happened.
Yeah, very quickly. And as I told you back then, I wasn't bringing any religion into it. It just happened at church. But there was one guy that when we were going into the Sunday school class in the morning, the adult Sunday school class, there was an older couple there that is a friend of mine, and he's a leader in the church and everything. But they were sitting across the class from me. And I'll just say this very quickly. They were sitting across the room from me in their table. And just before the assistant pastor, who's teaching it, started the class, the guy started coughing. And you remember me sharing this a couple of weeks ago. And he was going, and he's he's older than me. I think he's about 20 years older than me. But he was, and he stood up and he sort of walked out. And I said, okay, he's going out to try to see whatever and stuff. But just before the pastor started to start the class, I glanced over and I noticed his wife was sitting at that table, and she was doing this. She was kind of going and sort of looking out the door, and everything in me from a leadership sort of standpoint, everything in me said, okay, she's wondering if he's okay. So what I did, without saying a word, most people would kind of jump in, and the narcissistic styles would jump in and tell her, go find out, kind of thing, and all this kind of stuff. What I did is, without saying a word and interrupting anything, I stood up and I walked out of the class for a second, and I saw him just coughing a little bit, but he was just sort of standing on the walkway there, just outside the church and everything. And I walked up to him, and he said he was actually doing okay. The cough across the room kind of noticed me walk in, and she looked over, went like this, and I simply, very quietly, I didn't say a word, but I looked at her. And I just gave a thumbs up like this in front of my chest and stomach here. And she said, oh, okay. She kind of nodded her head and stuff. And about 15 minutes into the classroom, I noticed her sort of doing that again. And so without saying a word, I stepped up and I walked out. And this guy was doing okay. He was actually sitting in the sanctuary in one of the pews there. And I walked up to him, and he said he was doing very good and he wasn't coughing anymore. But he just needed to kind of rest a little bit off of that. And so I walked back in and again just gave a thumbs up, and she sort of gave a nod and stuff. And after the class, I was sort of ushering a little bit, and I noticed I wasn't watching her, but I just, in my peripheral vision, I noticed her kind of doing this to called, waved me over to her, and I went over there, and she looked at me and she said, Randy, I just want to say thank you so much for what you did in that class. And I just held up my hand and I said, my pleasure, sister. I said, I'm glad that all is okay, and kind of thing. But you know what? It's generating that sort of oneness when you're talking about your team and really creating leadership and all of this. And I'll you got to realize a lot of people that don't fully understand this sometimes in our society think that leaders are just dictating and just pointing fingers and telling people what to do and all that kind of stuff. No, it isn't. That's narcissistic arrogance. And it's, that's not what you do as a true leader. And as a true leader, you help your team believe in where you're going, but also you help your team believe in you and what you're doing and what you're modeling. And I'll just give you two very quick examples from the military background. Um, but I mentioned this on a show, I think about a year and a half ago, that the finest leader I ever served with in the military was General Richard B. Myers, and he was the officer that was selected as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff from 2001 to 2005, I think it was. But he was a lieutenant colonel when I served with him because he was the squadron commander at the 335th Chiefs, the unit that I went to after I was certified in F4s. And I tell people he's the finest leader with whom I've ever served, and nothing at all because of just what he tells you, but what I observed in what he does. And one of the examples that's very aligned with kind of what I did in the church that day and stuff was there was this one day where because he was on a morning responsibility where he was kind of up at the wing or whatever or something there and stuff. Some of the squadron members didn't realize that, and there was a guy that was down from the headquarters of the Tactical Air Command up in Langley Air Force Base, and he was standing there and he was asking about it, and several of the guys around the ops desk wasn't sure where Colonel Myers was at the time, and this guy, think about the dictatorial nature. This guy said, well, shoot, I may have to write this down and kind of see what's his problem, kind of thing like this and everything. Well, what was amazing is everybody was shocked when he said that. And we called the entire squadron at the lowest levels all the way into our squadron conference room. And here's what we said. We're going to show this guy that Colonel Myers is a great leader. And here's how we're going to do it. We came up with a short list of things we were going to do. And one of the things we're going to do, lieutenant colonels, when they walk into a building, a lieutenant colonel doesn't, they don't call the building to attention or anything for a lieutenant colonel. A colonel, yes. Well, the next day, Lieutenant Colonel Myers came into the squadron, and one of the guys said, "Room, tench hut." And he thought somebody had just walked in behind him, and he was kind of like back here. But what we were doing is, as a team, nothing he told us to do or anything, but as a team, we said, we're going to show that one guy how awesome Colonel Myers is. And we're going to show our squadron at a level and stuff. And it sort of blew him away and everything. The squadron was lauded by this guy at the end of his time there and stuff. But you know what? Your team, when you're talking about true leadership, it doesn't happen just because you're pointing fingers and dictating to people and threatening them and telling them what to do and all this kind of stuff. True leadership happens when you have created, and this is what I did with that lady in the church and stuff, as a friend and as a colleague. But true leadership happens when your people believe in what you think and what you're feeling and their experience of you, when they believe in what you're doing, when they believe in how this really fits together and everything. And guess what? We wouldn't have had that meeting in the conference room and come up with those steps if we didn't believe in Colonel Myers. And we did it without his help, without his advice, without anything. In fact, the only reason we did it is because of what that one guy said, which was a mistake kind of thing. But the bottom line is, uh, when you're talking about leading your team and you're really talking about leadership in your team, people don't follow you because you threaten them and you tell them, hey, this is what you're supposed to do and all that kind of stuff. That's not real leadership. That's
Mm-hmm.
narcissistic, dictatorial, control freak
Okay.
stuff.
Wow.
And that shuts people off. People say, okay, it's one thing to say, well, I guess he's going to turn us in if we don't do this. Okay, well, let's go do this kind of thing, as opposed to let's make that happen. Let's make that happen, kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And that happens when you lead your team in such a way that they experience the oneness, the belief, the the um the real synergy, and they want to be a part of it and stuff. And now in really rapidly changing situations, you may have to kind of point some fingers at what to do. But you know what? If your team believes in you and you do that in a way where they really see that part still coming from you, guess what? They want to be a part of it. They want to follow you. They want to make this happen, kind of thing, as opposed to somebody who's just kind of pointing fingers and threatening and trying to play control freak dictatorial games. And that's something that is very different in different areas out there. Now, I will say this. If as a leader you have somebody on your team that is trying to play control freak games with everybody else or trying to manipulate and play games, do you need to step up and do the right thing? Yes, you do, kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
because that's killing what you got modeled in the team, kind of thing. Um, but and I can tell you there's a couple of people that I remember. I won't mention names, but there's a couple of people not in the military here, but there's a couple of people that I've worked with that were escorted out of the building and let go by a company because of their aspect of doing that sort of stuff. And so it's just something to think about when you talk about that situation with that couple in the Sunday school class and stuff. When you're talking about leading your teams
Mm-hmm.
successfully for radical results, that doesn't happen just because you're threatening them and telling them what to do and calling them stupid if they don't do it just the way you wanted them to and all that kind of stuff. But it's building it in such a way. It's one thing if they say, well, shoot, don't go talk to him because he's going to go tell you what to do. It's a whole other thing when they believe in how you're going to connect with them in a positive way and they come and initiate the conversation with a question or two, and they have that conversation and stuff. Uh, if it's always just coming from you and you're doing it in a threatening way, in a pressuring way, you're not really leading in an effective way that's going to give you radical results. But if you do it in such a way where your team really has been developed to have synergy, not just mentally, but in their experience, and you have it such that they are wanting to follow you regardless, like we were in that squadron.
No.
If your team is wanting to model you and to follow you and to make this work right for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? You get amazing results out of that when the team can happen and do that. But that happens when you interact with them a little bit different in a way where they experience the real value, the real trust that you have in them, the real belief that you have in their team members
Mm-hmm.
and their synergy and the success that is waiting for us on the horizon there, kind of thing. That's just, it's a key difference in leadership that sometimes people don't often think about. And there's times where you got to stand in the gap for your people. I think I shared this. I'll just say this real quick, but back when I was up at the 107 Fighter Group up at Niagara Falls, there was one day where we were having a several day inspection from some folks about a simulated deployment that we might, that theoretically we'd have to do and stuff. But the guy was going to kind of speak to us because there was one mirror on a truck that was out past kind of the limit that you would have to put on an airplane.
Okay.
And he was making a big problem, and the guys and the folks were standing there going, well, but this, like this. Well, guess what? The commander of the unit saw us talking, and he walked up. He said, "Hey, what's up?" And the guy and the inspector looked at him and told him how we were failing, and this was this. And the commander just turned around and took his hand, and he went bam on the mirror, and the mirror went up against the truck, and he just turned to it and he goes, "Now it fits." And he actually went back to his office and called the inspection team commander in and said, "Hey, get this guy off my base." And they actually sent him home, kind of thing. And but the bottom line is he stood in the gap instead of playing games with it. And the big thing on it is that, are there times where you can't really step up? Yeah, depending on whether it's legal issues or, ethical issues or something like that. Yeah, there's times where you got to face the ethical truth in it. But what does your team truly feel in you? What do they experience in you? And in following you, are they doing that because they believe in you, they want the experience, and they want this to happen? That doesn't happen when all you're doing is pointing fingers and telling them this is what we're supposed to do, so here, you better do this, that kind of thing. It's creating it such that people want to make that happen. And it's just a key difference sometimes that people don't think about when you're talking about the difference between real leadership and kind of sort of dictatorial control freak stuff over here. But it's, getting that going in your team is critical. And, if you want radical results going forward, if you want people to look at you and go, "Wow, how did you do this? That's amazing." Wow, wow. And you know what? The leader says, "Let's bring my team in. We'll talk about how we did it." Or they are aware of kind of what we did as a team, and they can describe it in a way that highlights the synergy and the oneness and all that of the team and how that result was arrived at. And that's just something to think about when you're talking about leadership. It's not just about pointing fingers and dictating and threatening and, you better do this or you're going to be in trouble or anything like
Yeah.
that. It's about making that synergy really experience in your team, making them believe in you, believe in what they see happening. Um, and they not only do they experience your belief in them, but because of that, they're believing in you and for what they're trying to accomplish. And those are just some key aspects about it that is very different. And that's when you look at that, and that's a little bit of a good picture from the church, the simple picture of the
Yeah.
church example that I gave, because that's what I did. I didn't I didn't tell people what to do. I didn't say, "Hey, she needs to do this." I didn't do any of that. I just kind of went and did it in a way that nothing was interrupted. I didn't interrupt her, but I knew what she was wondering, and I gave a thumbs up. And she just, like I said, she called me over to where they were sitting uh, afterwards, and she looked at me, and what she said was, she said, "Randy, thank you so much for what you did in the
Aw.
class." And you know what? That's the kind of, if you're leading your team well in a really good um, way, that can sometimes be their reactions. You'll see your people walking up and giving you, and when I was a leader at Griffiths Air Force Base, a couple of the people that I worked with kind of I did that a couple of times, and other places that I've worked in aviation, I've had
Yeah.
people make comments like that to me uh, when we were doing something. And that is true leadership, where you're bringing out the radical results in your people, not by telling them or threatening
Yeah.
them, but by creating their belief, their vision, their desire, and their desire for the unity and to make it happen. And to, and in one aspect of it as a leader, if they think that you're just going to take all the credit for it,
No.
you know what? If when you reach those results, if you are lauding the team, and yeah, are
Yeah.
you the leader of the team? Yeah, but that kind of stuff. So that's just one big thing. If you're thinking about the old school aspect of just telling people what to do and making it so that they're going to come ask you questions because you won't tell them everything right this second, kind of thing, or whatever, kind of thing. If you want them to shut their brains off and just do what you tell them to do, that's not real leadership. Real leadership has this other aspect to it that makes radical results happen, and also it prepares people on your team to
Mm-hmm.
become leaders in that organization down the road.
True.
And so all of those are just aspects about it, and it's just two little examples there. One from what I told a couple of weeks ago, and but also the example of General Richard B. Myers. And like I said, uh, I don't even know if he's still alive or not, but I will say this, that he's the finest leader with whom I've ever served, and it wasn't because of any single thing he ever told me, but it's because of what I experienced in him and what I observed in him,
Mm-hmm.
and what I'm talking about there is very aligned with everything that I'm saying here. So it's just a key difference in the real leadership versus the sort of dictatorial,
The fake
superficial,
leadership. Yes, yeah,
the fake
superficial.
leadership.
I know,
Yeah, there you
I
go.
know.
So but that's key. And when you talk about leading your people, how do I ask the listeners, when you talk about leading your people, how do you need to apply that differently? How do you need to envision it differently than what you're doing? And how do you need to really bring that to radical solutions and and make real success in your team, in your organization, in what you're accomplishing? And so that's just a quick vision of the difference between those two.
Beautiful. Wow. Thank you so much. All right. We are just about out of time. How do you want to wrap up for today, darling?
Just today, it's an honor to be with you again. But for all the listeners, there's amazing results out there that can be achieved,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not just because you want it to, but what do you need to do differently in what you've been experiencing or whatever? What's the one or two things that you didn't envision before that you got to think differently about to really reach the radical results? And that's just what I'll leave with people for that, because it's something that a lot of a number of people, you see those managers out there that are just sort of dictatorial and control freak and think that their job is to just tell you what to
Mm-hmm.
do and you shut up and do what I tell you to do and stuff like
Uh,
that. And that's not leadership.
oh, heck
Leadership
no.
is much bigger than that.
Well, thank you so much for reminding us of that. And Randy, how can we reach out to you?
Well, I'll tell you what, as you know, because I've said it a number of times, but I don't do sales pitches when somebody calls. If they have a need, yeah, we'll come up with something. But if they just want to reach out and chat, we can do that. But on my the leading homepage of my website, you'll see my phone and my email address, and Randy coachingforrelevance.com. But if somebody wants to send me an email to just have a chat, we can do that. And or if somebody wants to call and leave a voicemail or something and just have a chat a little bit, we can do that for sure. Because I
Beautiful.
just I enjoy connecting with people. That's all.
Same here. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic day coaching for relevance, and we'll chat again next week, I hope. If not, 2 more weeks, hopefully soon.
Well,
Thanks
I'll
so
tell you
much.
what,
Oh,
1 or 2 weeks, and I'll enjoy talking to you again.
same here, sweetheart. Enjoy your day. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
you too.
Kindness
Bye
goes
bye.
a long way, everyone.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Adopt US Kids presents Multiple Choice Parenting.
Your daughter just had her first breakup. Do you A, put yourself in her shoes?
How could he do this to you? And for Sheila, she has split ends.
B, console her?
Oh, sweetie, this is going to happen a lot. 4, maybe 5 more times before you get married.
C, take charge?
Gotta get this all straightened out. Give a little talking to, man, mano a mano. Hey, Steve! Is now a good time? No? Okay, no problem. Bye.
Or D, help her find a new boyfriend?
I know a great place to meet boys. The internet. Nice, single boys. Never mind. How about some ice cream?
As a parent, there are no perfect answers. But you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.